My name is Chibunna Ogbonna. I'm a faith-driven entrepreneur. I hail from Umuahia, Nigeria. Chibunna is a very ambitious, driven young man who desires to make a contribution to the world through his gifts, and also he wants to put Africa on the map for great things. So Chibunna is someone that is passionate about business, is passionate about providing solutions to problems that exist in Africa, and he's someone that will always promote Africa across the world, as a place not just for aid and support, but a place of innovation, a place of transformation, a place that has a lot of potential for growth and promise. I was born as the second child of my parents and also the second son. Growing up in Umuahia, I had a very wonderful time in my family. I had the privilege and the opportunity of growing up in a very wonderful home. My parents really invested a lot in our education. They took care of us very well. And that was the beginning of my greatness journey. I attended Margaret Primary School, which later became Margaret Schools, where I later became the head boy of the school. And from there on, I went forward to Air Force Military School in Jos, where I did my secondary education. We grew up in the village, but my mom kept saying that you are not village children, She would say, yes, you are born in the village, but you are global children, that you are global citizens. And that began to shape the way I thought about myself, even the way I, approached problems in class, and the way I approached my studies. And this empowerment, this mental empowerment, enabled me to achieve a lot of amazing feats as a primary school child. Even when I went to secondary school at Air Force Military School Jos, I kept acing my courses, I kept acing my classes. So by the time I got to Air Force Military School in Jos, it was a military school where I was trained both in academics and in military subjects. And I later on became one of the junior provosts. And when I became a senior boy, I became the president of the mathematics club and also president of the Fellowship of Christian Students, in addition to being the intelligence marshal. So I had about 3 leadership positions or offices at that age of 16. And those were like the early formative years of my leadership journey. So after Air Force Military School Jos, I started thinking around what I wanted to do or how I would love to contribute to the world. At that time, the issues of climate change were becoming more prevalent, and having a science background, I could understand the chemistry of climate change. So this really disturbed me, and I wanted to be part of the people who would solve this challenge. And that spurred me and challenged me to take up chemical engineering as the course of study at Federal University of Technology, Owerri. At Federal University of Technology, Owerri, I had the opportunity to discover, my gifts in entrepreneurship. By joining the FUTO Business Club, I was able to meet other entrepreneurs who challenged me to also think beyond my current environment. And the desire to solve a problem, the desire to be part of the solutions in Africa also delivered to me, I would say, the platform, to start thinking about how to make my ideas become companies. So in 2016, I was researching about Bill Gates and how he started Microsoft at the age of 19. And at that time, I was also 19 years old. So I was really inspired by that. And I said, if Bill Gates could do it at the age of 19, then what's stopping me from attempting to also start a company at the age of 19? Then it was very unlikely for an engineering student to want to start a company and still be able to do well in their studies. So I knew the challenge before me, but I was so moved and zealous about this that I just decided to give it a shot. So when I received the idea for my first company, initially I didn't know even how to go about it. First of all, my parents were not entrepreneurs. The only, I would say, experience of entrepreneurship I've had was when my dad started a liquor shop when I was still in primary school, and I helped manage the shops at that time. I really loved the idea of going to the shop in the morning, sitting at the table and making sure that I count the money and also the drinks. But that business later on failed, and I think that was the very first experience of entrepreneurship. I can remember the name of the business. It was Skido and Sons Enterprises, because Skido is the nickname of my dad. But after learning about Bill Gates and how he started Microsoft at 19, I was super excited about the prospect of also becoming an entrepreneur and adding value. So as a chemical engineering student, you have the opportunity to either work for an oil company or an oil servicing company. And that was the traditional pathway for all engineering students, especially chemical engineering students. However, I wanted to follow a different path. I saw myself as a job creator. I saw myself that I could create jobs. And I was not so interested in working for an oil company. Though I got a scholarship with one of the oil companies in my school, but I was still not interested in working with an oil company. So when I received the idea for my first company, initially I was a bit scared because this is the first time I'm doing such a thing, but I believed I could do it. So the first thing I did was to write down the idea in my diary, and I just started looking around it. I designed the logo on the diary as well, and I had about 5,000 naira as a student that time. So I just used the money to pay for a graphic designer to work on a new logo for me. So that's how I started. I designed the logo of the company, and I believe that I started a company just like that by having a logo of a company. That was so hilarious. But looking back now, over 8 years, I'm so grateful that I took that first step, which has, birthed so many other amazing things in my journey. So remember, I had a military background. I also had the opportunity to go to Nigerian Defence Academy, right, to become a military officer. Now, the story behind this one is I would say it was a big turning point in my journey, because after receiving the idea for my first company, I folded the idea in that diary and I locked it away. So what happened? Because of my military background and experience, it was very usual for a military student to want to further their education with the Nigerian Defence Academy. And being the only child of my parents who had that military experience, and also in my community, everyone expected me to go and become a military officer. But indeed, that was not what I wanted for myself. But the pressure was quite a lot, and I decided to apply for the Nigerian Defence Academy. Now, on applying to the Nigerian Defence Academy in my second year at the university, I felt maybe I would not be able to get into the Nigerian Defence Academy. But lo and behold, after writing the exams, I was on the merit list of the 68 regular course. And I saw myself voluntarily withdrawing from Federal University of Technology, Owerri, leaving behind my chemical engineering degree, and also leaving behind that idea that I had received, and locked it away in the diary, and zoomed off to Nigerian Defence Academy to become a naval officer. So on getting to NDA, I discovered that it was not the best place for me to explore my entrepreneurial ideas, and that was a bit restrictive. And because of the intense military training and the fact that I had already given like a 1-year gap before I joined the Nigerian Defence Academy, it was difficult to adapt, and that made it even more difficult for me to adapt to the training. It was more restrictive for an entrepreneur like myself. So after a few weeks of spending time at Nigerian Defence Academy with my colleagues, fellow cadets of the 68 regular course, I was among those who were asked to leave the NDA as cadets because we could not thrive in NDA due to medical concerns. Actually, I lost about 4 of my colleagues during that first phase of our military training, I think because of the cold and the intense nature of the training. But after that, it was really alarming for the commandant of the Nigerian Defence Academy at that time, and he called for a new medical test to be done for everybody, for all the cadets of my course. So after the test was done, if you were found with any ailment of any sort, even as simple as malaria, you would be sent back home. On that fateful day of October 16th, 2016, I signed the ex-cadet form and was withdrawn from the Nigerian Defence Academy. Looking back, indeed, it was the hand of God, because there was no way I could have, survived in NDA at that time because of my ill health then, and also because of the potential I had, in the future. After leaving NDA, I almost became suicidal. I stayed in my uncle's house in Abuja for a while before I was moved back to Umuahia to see my parents. So on getting back to Umuahia, I was admitted to the hospital, and then I was taken care of. I would say physically I got myself back, but mentally I was really somewhere else, because now, I left my undergraduate degree chemical engineering at FUTO, which I was doing very well. I was doing very, very well. And then I had also left NDA now. So it was like sitting on the fence. It was a very difficult time for me, and I started having suicidal thoughts. But at the end of the day, I'm so grateful to God because I came out of that mental depression and I went back to Federal University of Technology to start all over again. So on getting to FUTO, my colleagues had advanced to third year and I had to start all over again from the second year, which I accepted. It was a lot of transition for me personally, and by the time I came back to FUTO, I went back to that diary that I kept the ideas, and I said, you know what, I'm going to give this idea a shot. And that was a seed of a new beginning. By starting again with those ideas, I was able to overcome the setback of the Nigerian Defence Academy and also overcome the setback of having to repeat a class in the university. Those were really, I would say, one of the strongest and the best times of my life, because it showed that I could overcome anything. It showed me that nothing was impossible for me to overcome. I'm grateful that I was able to overcome that challenge. How I started in real estate. I really love this question because it has so many stories behind it. In 2018, February precisely, 2 weeks after my birthday, I lost my mom, and it was a very tragic time for my family. My mom had been ill for a while, and by the time she passed on, things became very tough in the house, in my family, and my dad was retired. My mom was the primary breadwinner at that time, because she was still in service, but with her ill health, she could not continue working. So you can imagine how tough it was, and also the pensions were not coming as they should be coming for my dad, and my scholarship was not also very sufficient to take care of my personal needs apart from my academic needs. So I thought to myself, I can't continue like this. I need to do something. It was a huge wake-up call because after the demise of my mom, I knew that it was time for me to, take the bull by the horn and start something for myself that I could earn money and also take care of my family. I started thinking around, okay, what could I do that was lucrative, interesting, and that had future prospects, that's something I could do in the long term. And real estate came to mind. Remember, at that time, I also had started my first company. So I was juggling two things at the same time, my academics, my first company, and now I was adding real estate to it. So I was very curious about how would I even go into this real estate industry. It sounded so big and, so ambiguous that time. But now, I attended an event in Owerri for young people, and I found someone who was exhibiting some products about real estate, for a company. And that's how I asked him this question. I said, okay, sir, can you tell me how I can get into real estate? And he introduced his company to me. So the first introduction to real estate was actually through sales. So I became an agent, or what is known as a realtor. So I started selling for these companies. They were in Lagos, and I was back in Owerri trying to sell Lagos. It was a very funny time because I leave school, I will take a bike or a motorcycle, and I will travel all the way to the land to show my potential customers about the property, talk about the land, make videos and this and that. It was a very interesting time. With the zeal to make money and make it in a very legit way, I was so interested in how I could use this real estate industry to change my life. After 6 good months of trying to sell real estate, I never made one sale and I became discouraged. I was zealous, I was consistent, posting every day, reaching out to people every day. But after 6 good months, I never made a sale. And that was really discouraging. But I made a mistake. I shouldn't have given up at that time, because at the 8th month, I received a call from someone who asked me, okay, I want to buy now. Do you have land or do you have a property? And I was like, oh, I'm no longer in real estate. And that was very disappointing, because if I had stayed on, I could have closed my first deal at the 8th month. So that's how I started in real estate. But I promised myself something at that time. I told myself that if I ever get into real estate, I would never give up, and I was going to do it in a very big way the next time I get into real estate. Yeah, so that's how I started in real estate and real estate development. My vision for Africa is to see an ultra-developed continent. In my lifetime, I want to see Africa achieve her highest form of ultra-development. And what do I mean by an ultra-developed continent? An ultra-developed continent that is independent of other sources of foreign aid or assistance, a continent that is self-sufficient in food security, in transportation, in energy, in infrastructure development, in education, a continent that is able to trade with itself and build its own cities with its own natural resources. That is the vision I see for Africa. And I want to play a huge role in making this ultra-developed continent possible in my lifetime. And that is why I do the things I do. That is why I build the companies I build. And even the future businesses that I'm going to start are all geared towards achieving an ultra-developed African continent. More so, I see an Africa that is full of young people who are gainfully employed, and an Africa that trades with itself, an Africa that, connects with itself. Yes, that's the vision I want to see for Africa.